Sport tonight, a continuation of our series profiling Highlanders. Tonight it's the turn of Chris Noakes.
Grew up in Auckland, so I went to King's College. Weight graded up there, which was handy for a wee little white boy. So slowly made my way through the grades. I got taken away with the first 15 in my fifth form. I was only about 50 kilos or something. Just on an end of year tour, I guess a bit of an eye opener really, as to what could come. And then the next year again, sixth form, a couple of tours and a few sort of bench spots again. I guess I was a little small for them to really gamble on that sort of size in Auckland. And then seventh form, I played the whole year. In the first 15, was never in any Auckland teams until my seventh form, and again that came as a big surprise to me. Like I certainly cricket was more the sport that I'd sort of made a name, I guess, for myself. I'd played in all the Auckland age group teams sort of through school, and rugby, obviously loved rugby, but I guess competing in Auckland was a bit different. And Isaiah Tuiava was my year, and he broke down, and I got called up to replace him for the Auckland Secondary Schools tournament. So that's, I guess, was my first little break, I guess, in terms of rugby, seeing I could actually foot it with some of those guys.
Were you playing first five then, or setbacks?
Yep, I was. I guess my first, I was played fullback and flanker in sort of third form, and then I guess in fourth form I got moved to first five by my coach, who ended up being my first 15 coach later on. He sort of decided that I should play 10 instead of those other positions where I'd get the ball more.
And did you start goal kicking then, or were you always...
Yeah, I'd always goal kicked.
Right.
I guess that was just part and parcel of growing up. Always loved kicking the ball, and that's just... I just always went down to the park with my old man and my brother, and competition stemmed from a pretty young age in terms of kicking.
Right. So varsity, of course, would dictate your next move?
Yep, varsity certainly dictated the next move. Mum and Dad were, they sort of encouraged me to stay in Auckland, I guess, to try and chase a bit of the cricket side of things, because I sort of, I guess, immersed somewhat in that side of it.
Bat, bowl, keep? I
was, batter and wicket keeper. Derek de Border, who's I think he's captaining Otago in the next one-day game. He and I competed a lot through our school years. I'm the same age as him, and he was definitely a better keeper than I was. And so we were sort of always touch and go, and then I'd just bat and he'd keep. And so I guess that was sort of part of it. It was like Mum and Dad were like, "Oh, you're making it in Auckland." I was like, "Well, if I could make it in Auckland, surely I could go down to Dunedin, and where I wanted to go for university, and just get away and do my own thing was the big reason I went down there."
Great varsity though, varsity life.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'd had an older cousin who'd been down there, and having spoken to him, he couldn't speak any higher of it, and just in terms of the lifestyle and everything, just doing something completely different than, I guess, what I'd had in Auckland was something that I was pretty keen on doing.
So law, was that always first choice?
It was. My old man's a lawyer, and I guess it had always just held, I guess, an interest through that, but it wasn't. I guess I more did it as a broad degree along with a commerce degree to sort of I'd get through uni, and I thought at some stage during uni I'd work out what I would like to do. I guess I didn't go into my first year of uni saying I want to be a lawyer. I thought I wanted to do law as a degree to, one, I guess, a bit more of an insight into what Dad did, and I guess it did interest me, but I also knew that it was a pretty broad and well-respected degree to have, and you could use it alongside a commerce degree to, I guess, get yourself into a good industry, I guess, a commercial world.
So when you get down there, you immediately picked up by Otago coaches, put into the development sort of area, or?
No, not in my first year. At the end of my first year, I went down and I played varsity Colts my first year, and had a pretty good year. Made Otago under 19s, and I guess it was from there that I got put into the Otago Academy, and I guess that's when the eyes started to be opened as to you know, that people thought I was not a bad rugby player.
Had you played cricket by then, or did you play a bit down there?
I didn't play initially when I went down to Dunedin, but when I went back up to Auckland, I played back up in the summers in Auckland because I'd go down to the varsity term and then head back up home. And but when I first moved down, I guess it was certainly more the party lifestyle than getting stuck into a cricket season. I guess that was pretty much winding up by the time I got down there.
So first game for Otago, against whom and what do you remember?
First game for Otago, the NPC side, was actually against Southland. I guess that was my first class game. It was just a warm-up game down in Rugby Park. I think we won that game 37-35 or something. We scored a try with about 2 minutes to go. I think it was Tomo. But I think I came off the bench in that game and I managed to score a try. It was quite a frosty evening. I remember getting up and I basically grazed my arm from sliding in. But it was certainly a good start to I guess my career. My first NPC game. Well, I travelled up in our first game that year in 2007 to Wellington, where we got an absolute hiding. I think we lost 68-7. I thought I might have got on, but I didn't. They left me on the bench. I guess when the floodgates had really opened and they were like, righto, young kid, maybe not the best time to put him on with Umaga and Conrad Smith running rings around us. So I guess my first NPC game ended up being against Manawatu up there. Interesting experience. We drew. So I guess that wasn't the most positive thing. You still had the, belief. I mean, I guess everyone still has a belief. Those supposed big unions, Otago, who should beat Manawatu, despite the successes that they've had over recent years. So I was somewhat disappointed, but pretty, to finally have played that game was pretty special.
You're well ensconced in Southland memories for a certain moment. Lester still licking his wounds last night when I told him about it. Was the 55-metre goal to win the game. That was must still be a highlight among your many.
Absolutely. I think that certainly is still my highlight. I don't think. It's a tough one to top. I guess the rivalry for one between Otago and Southland, and I can still remember the crowd just banging on the hoardings and howling and all sorts, and I guess it was a perfect sort of moment. I guess it was quite dramatic in terms of how it all came about. And I know Batesy still cops it from the Southland players about they practice not doing a Batesy at the end of trainings and all sorts. So, but that was a great moment and a great bus trip home afterwards as well.
I bet it was. So once you finished your degree, is that what triggered the return up north?
I had one. I finished my degree at the end of 2009, and I still had a year left on my Otago contract, and I was picked in the wider training squad again with the Highlanders. I'd had a bad injury though halfway through that NPC in 2009 where I'd ripped my adductor. And it was, I guess, it took me about 3.5, 4 months before I started running again. And I guess that also, having that injury in the middle of NPC put a halt to any, I guess, aspirations of actually making the squad for Super 15, which was frustrating because I guess everything, had been going a bit plain sailing for me, and you never want to take things for granted, but maybe you sort of always look beyond is what happens, and if everything was going nicely upwards, would have been a nice thing to sort of just keep ticking off those wee little milestones, but it wasn't to happen. Obviously, an injury and form of team and myself, that didn't happen. And then again the next year, 2000, so I stayed down because I really wanted to make Super 15. That was a big thing. I thought I was good enough to do it, and I just hadn't quite done it. So I stayed down for 2010, and I did the wider training squad and another year with Otago. But again, just before the start of the NPC season, I did all the ligaments in my ankle the week leading into our counties game, and I missed the first 8 weeks of that NPC as well. So that again was, made it pretty tough to then for the last five games try and impress to earn any sort of Super 15 contract. Also the fact that Otago obviously didn't have a very successful year that year didn't bode well for that as well. So I guess it was frustrations and with injuries and personal form, and I guess Otago also not performing how we all thought we should have been, and I needed a change. I needed to, I guess, re-energise, get a bit reinvigorated, I guess, in terms of how I felt towards the game, because I was getting very frustrated with being injured, and then just, I guess, not winning doesn't help, and then not getting to where you want to get to as well. So just, I guess, moving to the Bay ended up being perfect for it. Went up there and got a law job up in Tauranga, and it all just took off. Like, it was pretty lucky. I guess I decided halfway through the NPC season that I was going to leave Otago regardless of what was happening. I didn't have any other contracts on the table at that stage when I sort of made the decision. And I guess 2 weeks after I'd left, I had calls from Southland and Bay of Plenty, obviously, and also Wellington, because I thought of going to Wellington or Auckland to try and find a law job and do both. I guess why I went to the Bay was the fact that I could do both, because as I thought would be the case, it would be pretty hard to get a law job and then them allow me to still play rugby. So, and that's what I found. They're like, we'd like to employ you as a lawyer, but we just can't give you 3 months off to go and do rugby, as well as having, I guess, a bit more lenient hours earlier in the year, so you can still go to trainings and gym and all those sorts of things. So I guess the smaller business in terms of the amount of work that law firms in Tauranga got and the demands and volume worked out perfectly for me.
So good season, and but even late in the season I spoke to you, you had no idea about the call-up, so when did that come?
Yeah, I guess after that Southland game, we met up with the Southland team and we were having a few beers at, it must have been the Ale House, and I remember talking to Nibs, and I'd always known that he'd, thought I was a reasonable player, and I guess that was why there'd be, I'd looked at going to Southland earlier. But he basically just sounded me out in terms of, I guess, whether I thought I could play at that next level and wanted to, and all those sorts of things. And then I guess I got a call a few weeks after that saying that they may be interested. And I guess that's when I sort of, knowing there were, murmurings, I guess, that you could actually make it.